You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. So, Dave, have you checked out the simulated games yet?
It's a lot of fun, dude. Yeah, that's definitely cool for people who are missing their baseball fix. You know, like they got to get their baseball fix, and they obviously can't do it because everything has been put on hold until further notice. And so at least these MLB The Show games we're sharing a little bit of joy here. So.
Well, I want to kind of give like a little bit of background on how I'm doing it, because people keep trying to figure out how we're doing what we're doing. I don't want to give away every secret, but I do set the lineups. Okay. So I'm setting the lineups right now. So that's something you and I can discuss today if we think that we want to change something that they're doing. And then I do make decisions on stolen bases. That's not me, though, that keeps waving in runners to get thrown out at home plate. I do nothing with advancing runners or holding runners. I do nothing with in-game play. I don't touch any of it. The only thing I might do is change a strategy thing. I am the person that called for the bunt for Yoan Moncada the other day that he popped up to the pitcher, but the guy had not gotten a hit yet. And that was the right thing to do in that situation. It was just a bad result. And then I have called for 8 stolen bases in this game, and we are 8 for 8 right now with stolen bases. Tim Anderson leading the league at this point in stolen bases in our simulated league. So, but otherwise, I'm not doing anything else.
I see Yoan is off to a pretty rough start here, huh?
He is. Did you listen to the Tuesday game yet?
I have not. I'm sorry.
He gets off the snide in the Tuesday game. I'm not going to tell you if it was big or if it was just one hit, but he does finally get off the snide in the Tuesday game. So what are your... I don't know how accurate this is going to be, but then again, it is the opening of a season. You're going to get people that you're going to get players that are off to slow start, so it could very easily happen to you on Moncada or any of the other players. So what has stood out to you with the simulated games? I'm curious.
Not much yet. I mean, it's still, like I said, it's still a little early. I've only been able to check out, I've only been able to check out a few of the simulated games, but
Tim Anderson's off to a hot start in the number 1 spot, which is something that like you and I have not been big fans of, but he's got, not only does he have the 8 stolen bases, but TA has been out there. I want to bring up what he's hitting right now. He's hitting 429 with an OPS over 1,000, and he's got a hit streak going since opening day. He's got 5 games under his belt, and he's got a 5-game hit streak.
Here's the thing. We talked about, like, I had mentioned that I would rather have seen Tim Anderson in the 1 hole than Yoan Moncada in the 1 hole. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that much. I mean, it does. It's, that's obviously these are insane numbers, but it doesn't surprise me that much. I mean, I'm happy to see that he's been tearing it up here in the 1 hole. Now, I have a couple of questions for you because, like, a lot of times when I follow the White Sox, I mean, a lot of times the games are on when I'm working. I can't necessarily see them. So a lot of times, like, I'm reading box scores and game recaps and such like that after the fact. So I just had a couple of folks that I was curious about, like, how they're doing up to this point. So Luis Robert, give me the line on Luis Robert at this point.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, the simulation seems to treat Luis Robert like it would treat any other rookie. He's not the superstar that you believe he's going to turn into, but he does have this little marking next to him that shows that he's improving, and he has like the stock where if he continues to do well, and if we continue to put him through just regular practice with all the other players, he will improve as the season goes on. He has, at this point, he went 0-4 on opening day, but he has been one of the better hitters in the lineup. He's batting 8th. He's got 1 home run that he hit off the kids deck in the kids zone in game 2 of the season, which was an absolute bomb. And I got excited myself just watching it. Like, I get excited watching the games. I get into them. I mean, there's nothing else to do right now. Like, there's no way to get excited about anything with baseball. He's overall right now only hitting .211, which is the same average that Mazara and Leury Garcia each have. but his OPS has him at 579. He has stolen a couple of bases. He has drawn a few walks. He has come through with a couple of clutch RBIs. He's just not, I mean, he's playing like a rookie, so it makes sense for him to play like a rookie. On the other hand, the guy who was the rookie last year, Eloy Jimenez, he's got the most interesting stat. He either comes to the plate and he either hits a home run where he has 4 through 5 games, or he gets a walk. If he doesn't get a home run or a walk, he's out. So he's hitting 250 with an OPS of 1.429 because of the amount of walks and home runs. But that's what he looks like right now. It's crazy.
So they're basically he's Jim Thome then. Yeah. So he's Frank Thomas. He's either gonna.
Frank Thomas always had a high average. He had a lot of years in there where he was hitting 300.
Yeah, no, I know. So he's Jim Thome. So he's either when he gets up to the plate, you're either going to get one of 3 things. It's either going to be a walk, a strikeout, or a home run.
Right. Well, what he is and what's crazy is that at least right now in this game, and it kind of backs up what he did last year. He only hit in the 260s last year, but he had a lot of home runs and he came on late. And he started to get better at walking too. So the simulation is kind of continuing that. I'd love it if he got a few hits, but I mean, it's kind of fun. Like I've got him in the 4 spot and he just, and all of his home runs are clutch. Like he's had 2 game breaking home runs where they're tied and he hits a home run to break open the game.
Please tell me that there's not a soundbite in this, in this year's version of the show of Hawk Harrelson going, it's not what you hit, it's when you hit it.
No. Although I try to slip a Hawkism in there every once in a while if you're listening closely. I try to do that. So anyway, that's the simulated season. Maybe we'll dive back into that in just a second. Let's talk about what's really going on in Major League Baseball. We had James Fox on from Future Sox. He's in one of the broadcasts. He's in Game 1 against the Indians. So if you go back and you find that one on the podcast, he's getting that one. And that one ends up going in the extra innings. It's the only extra inning contest so far in our simulated season. All the broadcasts come in somewhere between like 75 minutes and 90 minutes. That one went 100 because it went into extras. But he had some interesting things to say about this agreement between Major League Baseball and the MLBPA when they had to come up with what are they going to do depending on how long everything lasts here with the stoppage of baseball. I'm going to surmise what he basically said. MLB owners, knowing that there's a collective bargaining agreement came up, really did their best to position themselves in the best possible way with these players. I mean, first off, it's going to be very difficult for either side to go into a work stoppage, seeing as how we're having a stoppage in 2020. How do you go into one in 2021 or 2022? It would kill the game, and I think they all know it. Secondly, what the owners did is that they changed the format of the draft, and they're taking advantage of this by simply saying we need to defer all the money. So the number 1 pick in the draft will still get his millions upon millions, okay, for signing as the number 1 overall pick in the draft, but he's only going to get 10% of it this year. Then he gets like 40% the next year and the other 50% in year 3 or somewhere along those lines. But it's spread out. He'll eventually get the money. They're also lowering the amount of picks in the draft. And the other interesting thing that they did was they changed the maximum amount you can give certain players later on in the draft from like $125,000 to only $20,000. And what James Fox explained in the interview, and of course you can check that out if you go back and listen to the show. I think it's in the early innings, like inning 2, between inning 2 and 4. I know he shows up in there in that game. He basically explains the Sox and Major League Baseball were already doing that. The amount of college seniors that came out, that's what they were getting paid. They were getting paid $10,000 a year because they'll take whatever. So all this was MLB basically putting on paper something that teams were already practicing because they knew they had all the negotiating power, but they basically made it like actual rules. They also shortened the amount of picks in the draft, which is going to make it easier when Rob Manfred wants to contract the minor leagues because we're going to have less players coming in to baseball now because they've contracted the draft. They didn't need to do any of this. Let's be honest. They didn't need to do any of this. They could have had a draft without anybody showing up and still had a draft. But what they did is they cried poor, and the base and the players seem to have allowed that to happen because they wanted to make sure that service time was being accumulated. So there are different little measures for service time. But then there's also, they wanted to make sure that their players that were going to be free agents were going to be free agents no matter what. And so if there is no baseball this year, there will be no service time accruals. But if there's no baseball this year, Mookie Betts will still be a free agent. There'll still be a free agent class next year. Otherwise, there'd have been no free agent class. So the players looked out for their big money guys, and they tried to do their best they could with service time to get guys through their deals with owners. But they gave up the guys who aren't actually in their union yet, which makes a lot of sense. Basically, if you're a high school player,
they sacrificed the draft.
They sacrificed the draft.
The summary of this is the summary of this is they basically cut the draft super short, so that they could take care of their own right now, basically.
If you're a high school player right now who's highly touted, you're more likely, if you don't get the money that you think you should have gotten in this thing, you're more likely to turn around and say, I'll just try it again next year when things get back to normal, and I'll go play for a junior college team. So like if you're playing on the South Side right now and you're a high school player, let's say, you're going to go play for Moraine Valley rather than take the money if you think that you're getting shorted. So it'll make for some interesting decisions by those that get drafted. Teams can't cheap out on those players because some of them might sit there and say, I would do better if I just spent one more year and entered back in again when I wasn't going to get all the money deferred, and I might have a better chance. So that'll be the other interesting thing that's going on. And then finally, I also find it interesting that Major League Baseball has come up with a contingency plan for if they all of a sudden start playing games without fans, which honestly, I don't know how the Players Association will sit there and say it's totally okay for our players to expose themselves to each other, but when it's still unsafe for fans to be in the ballpark. I think that's a pipe dream. I think that baseball doesn't resume until everything is much, much better in the world. I would be shocked if they did it otherwise.
I don't see there being any benefit what's the benefit other than the TV ratings, which are not great anyway, especially in the early part of the year.
Yeah, but they're going to be big now because nobody has anything else. Like imagine this, if you're still being told, stay at home and there's not a lot of sports on, they want the television revenue. Like the owners want as much money as they can possibly get here. I mean, if they can get fans back in the ballpark, you watch. They'll be turning around. They'll be telling you we're going to do a bunch of double headers. We're going to do double header Saturdays or something like that to get as many games in as we possibly can. And then what we'll do is we'll institute this rule that we've been trying out in the minors, where in the extra innings we just put a player on second base so they can introduce their new rules, and they're going to justify everything around this weird thing. Like they're going to add an extra playoff team on both sides this year, which is something they've been clamoring to get out of the MLBPA, and they're using that. They're using this as a justification for it. Like, hey, we got to get some of our revenue back, and the MLBPA agreed to it. So they've taken advantage of the situation at hand right now to get a bunch of things they might not have been able to get or would have been leverage in a year or so during the collective bargaining agreement. They've already gone out and gotten it, which is that it's incredible, but they've gone and done that.
See, it's interesting too, because like you got to remember, it's going to be really interesting to see how the different sports approach this, because I've been kind of following a little bit like what's going on with hockey and the NHL. The difference here is that the NHL had a season that was rapidly approaching the playoffs that was cut short. So I know they've kicked around the idea of having the playoffs with no fans in it, but in the stadiums. But those are playoffs. Those are bigger revenue generators for TV than say early April baseball games. So I don't know. I mean, as it is right now, the entire month of April is a wash because nothing can happen until at least April 30th, and that's if the situation with things improve. I'm sure, I'll finish in just a second here. I'm sure that what is happening right there in the MLB offices is that they've got their whiteboard and their flow charts and their mind maps saying, okay, if this happens by such and such a date, here's our options A, B, and C. Okay, if such and such goes until X amount of time, here's options X, Y, Z that we can do. And I'm sure that they have all of that kind of planned out, but the reality is nobody now can do anything.
Foundation issues not properly handled can be costly. Family Waterproofing Solutions is owned by Ken, a veteran of the United States Marines, and his wife Maria. making them a veteran-owned business and a female-owned business that will diagnose and repair wet or leaky basements. During the current health crisis, Ken and Maria decided to pay each and every one of their workers, secure their jobs, and continue to give them health care from home. And while they're not currently going out and doing jobs, they will still give you an estimate and jump on and do a video consultation right now. Plus, part of the proceeds for every job that they do are donated to veteran and first responder organizations who support our frontline defenders. And currently, Sox in the Basement listeners have access to special pricing when they contact Family Waterproofing Solutions now, 708-330-4466, or visit them today at FamilyBasementWaterproofing.com. I want to get back to the simulated thing real quick here because I've been flipping through the stats, if you don't mind, buddy. But with our simulated season, I just want, and this would ruin, if you haven't listened to today's game, by the time the podcast comes out, it's already too late. But we're recording right now live on the Podbean app so you and I can talk to each other. So there's a few people listening in right now. This includes today's broadcast that you can get everywhere podcasts can be found and always at soxinthebasement.com, including on Podbean. It's up. It's a game against the Indians that would have been played today. And all 5 starters will have started now after today because Reynaldo Lopez takes the mound. So of the 5,
we gave him the 5th starting spot. Okay.
Yeah, I put him in the 5 starting spot. So of the 5 starting pitchers, name me who you believe has pitched the most amount of innings with 7 innings pitched, got the win, 8 strikeouts, an earned run average of 1.29 and a whip of 0.71 after one game, and who had the least amount of innings pitched with 4 innings pitched. Can you give me those players out of the 5 starters of Giolito, Keuchel, Cease, Gonzalez, and Lopez?
Well, there's no way the first one is Lopez. It can't be.
Reynaldo Lopez. No way, right? Reynaldo Lopez is the best pitcher through the rotation so far.
Get out.
I'm not kidding. In the simulation.
Wow.
I watched the game. He pitched in the rain with swirling wind. There were like errors everywhere, and he just shut down the Indians in the simulation. I was laughing as it was going on. I was like, what is going on here? He actually struck out the side of the 4th inning, and like his animated little character was like pumping his fist on the mound. And I was like, the attitude of Reynaldo. I mean, like, I really lay it on thick in the broadcast. I'm like, man, where does this come from? This man child. Like,
Please tell me.
So who had the least amount of innings pitched?
Please tell me that Keuchel doesn't have the 4 innings pitched.
No, he had 6 innings pitched, and he got the win in his game. Okay. But Lucas Giolito. Giolito had 4 innings pitched on opening day and got chased. They end up winning the game on opening day, but he put a lot of base runners on and gave up, I think he gave up 4 runs in 4 innings. He struggled like crazy. He had like 100 pitches by the end of the 4th inning. Like he was just terrible on the mound. So, I mean, there are early results in its simulation, but I found that to be hysterical. James Fox from Future Sox actually told me after we recorded the interview, he was like, I love these broadcasts. He's like, I'm listening to the Keuchel game and it takes him 10 pitches to get through the first batter and I'm screaming at my phone. Like, come on, Keuchel. And he's like, I completely forgot this isn't real. And he's like, because he's getting all into the game. So I think it's kind of fun because it's a good release for people that they get to sit back and listen to a ball game every day. And, you know, and we're keeping the stats. And what's great is that the blog Sox on 35th is now covering our games and doing the post-game write-up with the box score on their page. So they're putting out the box score and posting the statistics to our games while we're doing the broadcast.
Wait a minute. I'm actually looking at this right now. Sox on 35th.
Check it out. They've got the recap. They embedded the broadcast in there so their regular followers can find us. Yeah. It's awesome.
So I'm going to, I see it's right up. Wow, it's right up here. Simulated Sox, White Sox versus Indians, March 31st. Is that this?
So you're looking at the recap of the game that's up right now. So if you don't want to know the results and you want to listen to it, it's a great game in the pouring rain in Cleveland. It's got all kinds of excitement in it.
I'm going to go to the March 30th one. Hang on, I'm going to go to the March 30th one. This is the one that went into extras, right?
This is the one that went into extras, and they were winning, and they blew the game. Alex Colome blows the save.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he blows the save, and then Kelvin Herrera comes out, and he's had 2 innings pitched in 2 separate games, and he's given up a run in each of them. And so he's the one who gives up the run in the 10th inning, and they lose the game. But as you can see, like,
awesome.
Sox on 35th is doing like a full recap of the game, and then they post the stats and everything. So we're talking to each other like every day. We exchange emails where I tell them everything that happened, and then they listen to the broadcast as well, but they know to listen for certain things, and then they write the recap and put it all together. So it's really kind of fun. Like I'll tell you, it was my idea originally. I saw that they tried to simulate opening day, and it just didn't seem like it had the flair because it was just them kind of guessing. And I was like, why don't you do mine? Because then people can listen to the show and they can listen to the actual broadcast, and then you guys could do the recap. And they were like, we're in. So it's pretty cool that they're doing it. Yeah.
That is very cool. Yeah, there it is. There it is right there. Yeah, game broadcast presented by Sox in the Basement. Nice.
And if you click on the link there, then you can listen to the broadcast, but you can also get the broadcast if you're following Sox in the Basement. I would prefer, and I think that most people will enjoy it that way, if they listen to the show. I mentioned Sox on 35th a couple times during the broadcast, so you'll be reminded who to go to for the post-game wrap-up. And so
gotcha.
you'll be like, listen to us and then go back and read the thing. And that way you don't get it spoiled for you. I know my dad, all of his friends, like, we're getting a big old man audience, which I'm totally cool with. But like my father and all of his friends are listening to the game while they sit at home with their wives. And like one guy, I guess, told my dad, like, I thought baseball was canceled. What is this? And he, like, his wife was totally convinced it was a game, because we have everything from the sound effects to like things that happen in the game and in-game interviews. Don Paul, White Sox alum, White Sox ambassador now from Evergreen Park, Illinois, is going to be joining us for the next several games. He's got sound bites. I talked to him for like a half hour. I asked him all kinds of questions for different game situations and stuff about him. And when we go to Fenway Park, he's got some great stories about Fenway, and he's going to be jumping on the broadcast, which is awesome. And then once we've used up those kind of things, I'm going to put the whole interview together, because the interview itself together is about me and Don just sitting down and laughing and him telling old stories for like 25 minutes. And there's a great one about like what the team was like when they were on the road, and the partying and the drinking and how he didn't get into it, but he used to live with his parents and they used to give him a hard time. It's great stuff. So look for that too. So another reason to subscribe to Sox in the Basement, and also check out the live broadcast so you can hear some of those stories. And then the rest of them will all be thrown in to a really nice interview that we're going to have on next week's show. So we're still trying to do whatever we can here because there's no sports, but I'm going to tell you something. I would rather go into a fantasy world or talk about something that's actually happening than continue to recycle the same stories that are going on. I mean, I'm no longer interested in talking about what's going to happen with a player, because they're not even in spring training right now. There can't be any offseason moves. There can't be any trades. You can't sign anybody. Baseball is literally paused, and I crave baseball. And this is the only thing keeping me sane, is doing these broadcasts, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you do you. I mean, you've got, you're stuck in the house with 3 kids there, dude. So, I mean, it's, you gotta do what you gotta do to keep your sanity.
I mean, let me tell you who I would be excited. I'm going to tell you something. I'm excited about the bullpen just because of the way they pitch in the simulations. Like, Steve Cishek is a god out of the bullpen. Okay, he's got 5 strikeouts over 3 1/3. He's only let 1 batter on in those 3 1/3 innings. He's got the weirdest delivery. Like, please tell me that they have his delivery down right. It's got so much movement coming off the ball. It's basically sidearm. He pitches the same way if he's on the mound with nobody on, or if he's got like 3 guys on. Like, it's the same delivery every time. And then Jimmy Cordero, who I was starting to fall in love with last year because he would have a couple of good performances, has pitched really well in this simulation as well. It's really kind of fun to see the bullpen they put together, and at least the potential that using the PECOTA projections and using previous seasons, that's how MLB The Show kind of comes up with these ratings. The way that they perform when you simulate them, they're a pretty solid bullpen. And after years of bad bullpens, this actually looks pretty good.
Considering the bullpen they had last year.
I put Carson Fulmer on the team, and he's still atrocious. And Kelvin Herrera has been brutal. They don't expect him to have a bounce back based upon their projections, but you could find a way to hide those guys when you got a lead. And that's what I've been trying to do when we're playing.
Yeah, no, this is cool. I was not even aware I was not even aware that, I was just looking through it right now. I was not even aware that Sox on 35th was covering the post game here. So this will be cool. So if I cannot check out a game, I will definitely check them for the recap. It's been crazy, man. Like I've been working a lot because a lot of folks are working from home or just flat out not working at all. I've been blessed to have, getting off the subject, but I mean, I've been blessed to have everything transfer over to online lessons at my place. And, the irony of it is that, or maybe it's not irony, but I've had just about perfect attendance all the time because what the hell else is anybody going to do but just hop on Skype or Zoom or something like that and take guitar lessons or piano lessons. I've had it to where people are like, hey, I'm home with nothing to do and I've got all these makeups. Let me book some extra time with you to start catching up on all of this. So, I mean, me personally, I've been working more. So spare time through all of this, thankfully, has been kind of at a premium. So
I've sat around and actually considered it because you're teaching my son, your godson, you're teaching him guitar. And I keep thinking to myself, like, man, I should start taking guitar with Dave too. I got nothing else to do during the day. I want to kind of sign up now because I actually have more time on my hands to take guitar.
Last week or two, like over the past, like the first week or so, middle of last week to early, middle of the week, 2 weeks ago to early, last week was kind of the initial panic of, oh my God, the world is going to end. So we had a few people, drop off the schedule, understandably so. What's happening now, though, is people are starting to adjust to this, what the media is calling the quote unquote new norm. And people are looking for things to do. So we're actually getting some calls from people who want online lessons. Oddly enough, I took a call from a woman in San Diego, of all places. So
that's awesome. Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you something. I miss you. This sucks. I hate the fact that we can't sit down at the bar together. I even tried to convince Erica that it was okay for you and your wife Hannah to stop by. I was like, it's only one couple. And then your wife is the one that said it. Like, wow, Dominic's got asthma, and I would hate myself if he ended up on a ventilator. And I get it. And so it's kind of like it absolutely stinks. I hate not seeing you guys. I like the fact that we can Skype every once in a while and see each other's faces and use the technology that's out there. I can't imagine how you wouldn't go crazy if you didn't have some of the technology that allows you to still be able to talk to people and communicate with people right now. And we're a little bit lucky that we have that going on. I think this thing's going to push well into the summer. It's just the feeling I have, and I'm not trying to be negative. I just feel like that's where we're going to be, but at least we're able to provide a little bit of a getaway, a little bit of an escape with some baseball every day on Sox in the Basement. If you are pressed for time, the interviews generally fall in the first few innings, and then you can skip ahead to the last inning with the little skip button if you really want to. I'm okay with that. But if you want to sit back, like I said, 75 to 90 minutes total. I mean, when you think about what a baseball game normally takes you to listen to, it's normally like a 3-hour affair. I got pregame, postgame, and the actual game, and I'm getting it done in 90 minutes or less. So, I mean, that's right. It moves, and it moves for a reason, and we've set all the settings to make it move for a reason, and I'm really enjoying doing it. I wasn't sure when I did opening day if I would do any other days, but we're going to do it, and then we're going to check in with you from time to time and try to, I want to get you involved as much as possible. So keep following it, my friend, because we're going to talk about this simulated season all year.
Will do. All right, man.
All right, you stay well. Go teach some lessons. I know you got to get to work. You got your first one coming up here in just a few minutes. Sox in the Basement is available to everyone on demand, and all of the baseball games are up and on demand, simulated. Every day we put up the new one based upon what the White Sox schedule would have been. And you can find it everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. Take it easy, bud.
Sox in the Basement. Sox in the Basement. Sox in the Basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.